Well, hey there guys, it's Joe again with your local farmer again after a very long break. Folks, I'm going to save you the long spiel about where I've been, what I've been up to. I'll fill you in on that very shortly. But I'm coming to you today, December 25th of 2024, Christmas Day. And here in the Northwest, we don't have white Christmases, we have wet and rainy Christmases. I'm here next to our petting zoo animals. We of course keep most all of our goats, and we have a couple of donkeys and sheep and a llama and a cow that we keep for our petting zoo. But I wanted to show you something here awful darn cute. You guys are going to appreciate this. Here he is. This is, I don't know, a little boy, little girl. We don't know yet. Hello. Hello, you. Just born today. A baby goat. Don't know what brand. Male brand, female brand, but definitely their name is Christmas. I'm sure of it. Anyhow. Uh-oh. Where are we going? What are we doing, guys? What are we doing? Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Fawn, stay out of the way. Anyhow, guys, here we are. Don't worry, these guys will do just fine. Mama's right there. Mama's watching, okay? So everything's going well. Mama will take care of a baby goat. I'm taking a quick little tour around our fields here in my pickup. There's really not much to see, other than the fact that, we planted these fields to winter wheat. I'm sure if you've seen my other videos, you know that we are big believers in winter cover crops. Here in the Northwest, we have a big problem with nitrogen leaching because we don't freeze. And in fact, if you don't mind me saying, when I watch some of the farmers that are in the Midwest, it's hilarious that they talk about, that their nitrogen, their nitrogen really stays in the soil quite well for them because it is so cold and it just freezes and the water just essentially just holds the nitrogen in the soil. We have, I won't say the opposite problem, but obviously we don't get freezing. So as that water continues to push down through the soil profile, it continues to wipe out whatever nitrogen we have in the soil. Which of course is why we're big believers in trying to do everything we can to keep the nitrogen in that top layer of soil. Something else I'd throw out there is, back in the 1990s, for those who don't know or haven't picked up yet on my videos, we used to be a grain farm back in the 1990s. I actually grew up driving combines. And so it was a big change for us to go into vegetable production. And so just the fact that I can drive my pickup out here is just amazing. We have now hard-packed roads. We've got, if I were to show you a map, we've got these hard-packed roads that go all through our farm. Because what we're essentially doing is making, if you will, vegetable beds, if you want to think of it that way. Whereas when we were a grain farm, this was just wide open. So driving through the middle of this field that I am right now would, I would be sunk to the axles. I would just be dead in the water. There'd be no driving through here. But because we've got these hard packed gravel roads, I can do this now. Okay, so let's get into the gist of what we need to talk about today. Folks, I don't want to scare anybody. I don't want to be the nervous Nelly, or be the person that is saying that, the sky is falling. But I want to talk to you a little bit about what I'm seeing as a farmer. There's a partner video to this that I'm going to do in the next day or two. That's going to be, kind of a 1A, 1B video. And so I'll make sure that as those videos come up, we'll link one to the next, okay? But it looks like this, okay? By the way, for those who don't know, I was as I like to say, many pounds ago, I was a United States Marine. I'm gonna turn off the truck here so I can sit and talk. I'll turn off the lights. Okay. So I spent my 6 years in the United States Marine Corps Reserve. Now, I like to tell people that, and by the way, I hope you have the same twisted sense of humor that I do. I like to tell people I only killed people on the weekends. By the way, it was the 90s. We didn't kill anyone. In fact, we didn't even go to war at all. So anyhow, What I'm going to start with is this. There is a phrase, and the phrase goes like this: an army moves on its stomach. Okay. Now you may be thinking, okay, that's, someone who doesn't know anything about that phrase may think, well, it's because, they're crawling on their hands and knees in the mud. And no, that's not it at all. What it is it's a comment that says, when they say an army moves on its stomach, what they're talking about is an army only moves as fast as it can get logistics. Okay. By the way, I'll give you the short version. I worked like I said, I was a Marine. I got really screwed over by the United States military. I was supposed to be a truck driver and a mechanic, and I wound up being a typist. Okay, typist, as in what we referred to as administration. Okay, however, I worked alongside and got to work. I got to do a little bit of the job of what they call the S4 shop. Why the cryptic number? I don't know. It's the military. They do weird things. But anyhow, the S4 shop, that's logistics. And the logistics, we always talked about the 3 Bs. Where's the 3 Bs? Beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. Beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. And that's what we're talking about. When we, with the old phrase, an army moves on its stomach. Where's the beans? Where's the bullets? Where's the Band-Aids? Army moves on its stomach, they mean beans, of course. But it's a key phrase saying that you can't, an army can't fight if it doesn't have logistics, okay? Now, why is it that I even brought up this phrase? Well, first of all, I'm following some of the war in Ukraine, okay? Does it have me concerned? Yes. Am I afraid that, Russia's going to invade the U.S.? No, not at all. Not at all. But what we are seeing out of Ukraine that has me concerned is that there's an awful lot of Russian soldiers that when they are captured as a prisoner of war, what they're saying is, I haven't been fed in 3 days and I haven't been paid. And I am deeply demoralized. Okay. Well, as you can imagine, especially the United States military, especially the U.S. military, if morale starts to drop, our military might as well just stop fighting altogether. Morale has become one of those things where we've got to watch morale more than we watch anything else, okay? And that means that they're well fed, okay? What does that have to do with agriculture in the year 2020? Well, almost 2025. What does that have to do with agriculture in the year 2025? I'll tell you exactly what it has to do with it. Folks, I am not afraid of war. I don't think the United States is going to be attacked directly. I guess that's the key word, directly. Am I afraid of us being pulled into a war? Yes. Okay, yeah, fine. Folks, in the military, we called it logistics chain. Here in the United States, we can call it the food system. Okay, and in fact, here in our local county, we actually have a group. I highly appreciate this group of people. They're called the Food Systems Council. And in fact, at one time, I was even asked to join that council. Unfortunately, I've just been too busy. And so I kind of just turned down the offer. I said, thanks, but no thanks. The Food Systems Council is looking at things like what food production is going on locally and how does it get to people in need? What does the standard food system look like in the through the grocery store system, and how does that get to the underserved communities, stuff like that, okay? Folks, as a farmer, I'll even go a step further and say, what scares me is that we have a logistical challenge, whether that's through war, economics, maybe a key trade partner falls on its proverbial face, and all of a sudden the United States is in a situation where we cannot get the food that we normally get. That's what scares me. So let's kind of start from the beginning. Okay, let's go back to the 1700s, 1800s. Okay, we had farmers. And in fact, I'll even back up a little bit. I don't know that I would even say we had farmers. We had, what do you want to call it? It's the whole homesteaders and the almost just want to say citizens. Citizens. Everybody. It's funny. I don't know that in the 1700s that they really had such a thing as a farmer. I mean, everybody had some kind of agricultural production. And, let's say, I was one farmer and I raised beef, and my neighbor over here, they raised chickens. Neighbor down the road, he raised hogs or pork. We had other people that raised fruit, and then vegetables, and then we traded, we bartered, we did all these things, and then people canned and preserved. Everyone had a root cellar. Everyone had items that were stored for the winter. Potatoes were grown across the country, not just in Idaho. Okay, we had all the things that people could ever want were grown locally and then shared. I don't want to say shared within the community, because there was trade for them, there was a purchase for them, but the community fed the community. And in fact, I'll say this, as I understand it, the big change became with refrigeration, as I understand it, because that refrigeration is when the Old West kind of came into its own, because they could take cattle from Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, the Colorado, Montana, and they'd push them over to Chicago, essentially, and rail them into Chicago, and they would cut them for beef or cut them for meat, and then the packing houses in Chicago, and then distribute them to the East Coast. And that's, I don't want to say it was the downfall of American agriculture, but it was the first major change. Now, where do I feel that we have maybe gone wrong and set ourselves up for this theoretical implosion that I'm kind of getting at, shall we say? And that is, I feel that it goes back to about 1970. Now, I don't want to throw any one, shall we say, presidential administration under the bus. However, it kind of happened with Richard Nixon. And by the way, not Nixon. It was who Richard Nixon picked as his ag secretary. Okay. He picked a gentleman by the name of Earl Butz as his ag secretary. And Earl Butz was an ag economist and president of Purdue University. Okay. By the way, very brilliant man. He really was. Okay. But his attitudes kind of put us where we are currently with agricultural production. And the way it worked was kind of like this. He wanted us to get out of small farming. Okay. He didn't like, I don't think it had anything to do with like or dislike of the small farm, the farm that had, a few head of dairy cows, and they raised chickens, and they did this, and they did beef, and they, and they grew grain, and they made hay, and they did all this. His attitude was, we are an agricultural powerhouse. We, being the United States, by the way, are an agricultural powerhouse. And the way that we will take over the world agriculturally is to focus on commodities. Okay. And that's where I think we went wrong. Okay. Now, did it work well for a while? Absolutely it did. Throughout the 70s. And in fact, to hear my dad talk, he goes, my God, he says, in the mid to late 70s, he says, I couldn't spend money fast enough. He says, we were all, living, shall we say, high on the hog, and doing really well farming. And of course, keep in mind, my dad graduated high school in 1971 at 17 years old and was doing great as a 17-year-old farmer. Okay. Bought all of his own equipment, did great until about 1981, 82. By the way, it was war. It was a war that ruined it. I'll cover that in another video. Anyhow, we got into something called the farm crisis. It kind of tanked the ag economy. But here's where I'm really seeing the problem that we're having. Okay, and it comes down to this: Earl Butz pushed us to focus on commodities. But here's the problem, folks. I like to refer to it as we are now competing based on the lowest common denominator. Okay? Commodities. These are cheap products. They're not sold by the ton. They're sold by the rail car, folks. These are cheap commodities, and boy, we're going to take over the world with corn and soybeans, and Foster Farms is going to take over the world because they're going to produce chickens cheaper than anybody else can even afford to grow them. And yeah. And who are we relying on for all of the stuff that we have really become accustomed to? I don't know about you guys, but I like a salad now and again. I like fresh berries. I like fruit. I like tomatoes in the middle of winter. Okay, where do those come from? Well, they don't come from the U.S. because we haven't focused on them. Remember, we're doing commodity crops. And so the thing that scares me, folks, like I said, I'm not trying to say the sky is falling, and I'm not saying that we're on the brink of war. That's not it. I'm saying if there's a logistical hiccup, well, maybe it's caused by a war somewhere, and here we are in the U.S., and we're growing dirt cheap corn, and we're growing dirt cheap, canola and soybeans, and we can't get tomatoes, and we can't get fruit, and we can't get lettuce, and and the list goes on and on. Anyhow, you may ask, Joe, what is the end goal of this video? I guess the end goal of this video is like this there, folks. I think that as a nation, we need to be reaching out to our senators, our legislators, and we need to be reminding them that this commodity agriculture is wonderful. It's great because it brings foreign dollars into the U.S. and it's an influx of trade money into the United States. But we can't feed ourselves on it. I mean, we can feed ourselves on it somewhat. We can eat noodles and bread and corn chips, soda pop. That's about it. But we're not going to get lettuce. We're not going to get cabbage. We're not going to get vegetables. There's an awful lot of fruit that we're not going to be able to get. Yeah. And I think the scariest part of this is this, folks. The United States is the world's largest producer of corn, and yet we still have a subsidy for corn. Why? The United States is, I believe, one of the largest producers of wheat, and yet we still have a subsidy for wheat. Again, why? By the way, I could be wrong on that. Why aren't we, okay, if we're going to talk subsidies, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a big fan of subsidies myself. Why don't we have a subsidy for lettuce? Why don't we have a subsidy for cabbage? Why don't we have a subsidy for greens? Why don't we have a subsidy for a whole bunch of other vegetables, a whole bunch of other fruit, a whole bunch of other food items that Americans should be eating? And yet we are relying on other countries to do it. That's about it for the video, by the way. Folks, I got another video coming here real soon. It's going to partner up with this, and I'll be sending that out here in just a day or two. Folks, like I said, I'm shooting this on Christmas Day. It'll be a day or two before I get this posted up. I hope you guys are having a wonderful time. I hope you had a very Merry Christmas, and I hope your New Year is, well, let's just put it this way. I hope that you are blessed in 2025 and that your New Year is a wonderful time. Folks, you take care. Give me a comment down below if you have any questions or concerns or any thoughts about what I have to say. Take care. We'll see you later.